The morning I knocked on Misa Noor's door, I was carrying a cracked suitcase, a dead phone, and the kind of regret that can make a grown man feel 9 years old again. The sky above the old neighborhood was bright with daylight, but inside my chest, everything was midnight. I had not seen her in 12 years. I had not written. I had not called. I had not even said goodbye properly. And yet, when the door opened and she stood there in soft blue pajamas, hair messy, eyes full of something I could not name, she only looked at me and whispered, "You're later than I expected." Before this story continues, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the people who wait for us even when we do not deserve it, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel Ancient Truth. Sometimes a simple story can remind someone not to give up on love, forgiveness, or coming home. My name is Armaan Javed, and for most of my life, I believed survival meant leaving everything behind. I grew up in a narrow street where children played cricket with broken bats, aunties shouted from rooftops, and every afternoon smelled of dust, frying onions, and wet laundry drying in the sun. Our house stood across from Misa's, separated by a small lane and a neem tree that bent over both our roofs like it was protecting a secret. Misa was my first friend before I even understood what friendship meant. She was the girl who tied my shoelaces when I was too stubborn to learn, who saved the last orange candy for me, who clapped the loudest when I won a school race even though I had cheated by cutting across the chalk line. She had laughter that made bad days look embarrassed. She believed every broken thing could be fixed with patience, glue, and prayer. But my father did not believe in gentle things. He was a quiet man until he was not, and when anger entered him, the whole house became smaller. My mother carried sadness like a second dupatta, always folded neatly, always hidden from guests. By the time I was 17, I had learned to hate our street because it had seen too much of my shame. It had heard my father's shouting. It had watched me walk to school with bruises I pretended were from fights. It had watched Misa quietly leave food near our back gate when my mother was too sick to cook. I wanted out. I wanted a new city, a new name, a life where nobody knew the boy I had been. The day I left, Misa came running after me in the burning afternoon sun. I still remember the pink scarf flying behind her, her sandals slapping the road, her breath breaking as she reached the bus stand. She held out a small notebook, the one she used to write poems in, and told me to take it so I would remember home did not have to mean pain. I was angry, proud, terrified, and too young to understand that people who love us are not chains. I pushed the notebook back into her hands and told her I was not coming back. I said it cruelly because cruelty felt easier than crying. Her face changed in a way I have never forgotten. Not loud pain. Quiet pain. The kind that folds itself and sits down inside someone forever. Then the bus came, and I left without looking back. For 12 years, I built a life out of running. I worked in shops, slept in storerooms, lied on job forms, and smiled at people who never asked where I came from. Eventually, I became a sales manager for a furniture company in another city. I wore pressed shirts. I learned English phrases that made clients trust me. I rented an apartment with white walls and no memories. People said I was successful. They did not know I still woke some nights hearing my mother cough, hearing my father's belt hit the table, hearing Misa call my name from the bus stand. Success is a strange thing when nobody from your heart is there to see it. Then everything collapsed in 1 month. The company closed after its owner vanished with money. My apartment lease ended. My savings disappeared into hospital bills for my mother, who died before I could reach her. I arrived late to her funeral, late to her grave, late to the last chance I had to ask forgiveness from the woman who had loved me in silence. My father was already gone by then, buried 2 winters earlier, and the old house had been sold to pay debts. For the first time in 12 years, I had nowhere to run. That is how I returned to the neighborhood on a bright weekday morning with a cracked suitcase and a heart full of dust. The lane looked smaller than memory but somehow more alive. Children still ran barefoot. Someone was washing a motorbike. The neem tree was older, thicker, leaning over the road like it had waited longer than anyone. I did not know why I went to Misa's house first. Maybe because grief makes the soul crawl toward the last place it felt safe. Maybe because I had lost everyone else. Maybe because somewhere inside me, beneath pride and fear, I had always known she was the door I never stopped walking toward. When she opened it, she did not look shocked. That frightened me more than anger would have. She stood there in pajamas, holding a mug of tea, morning light resting on her face. She was older, of course. There were tired shadows under her eyes, and her smile had become quieter, but she was still Misa. Still the person who made the world seem reparable. Her words, "You're later than I expected," broke something inside me. I wanted to apologize, but my throat closed. I wanted to explain, but every explanation sounded like an excuse. So I simply stood there, a grown man with nothing left, crying on the doorstep of the girl he had abandoned. She moved aside and let me in. Her house smelled of cardamom, old books, and sunlight. There were plants near the windows and a sewing machine in the corner. On one wall hung framed certificates from the school where she taught. On another was a photograph of her parents, both gone now, smiling as if the room still belonged to them. Misa gave me water first, then tea, then silence. She did not attack me with questions. She let me sit at the dining table while my hands trembled around the glass. That kindness hurt worse than blame. Blame would have let me defend myself. Kindness left me naked. I told her everything in broken pieces. My mother's death. The lost job. The sold house. The years I had spent pretending I was not lonely. She listened without interrupting, but her eyes grew wet when I spoke of my mother. When I finally whispered that I was sorry for the bus stand, for the notebook, for disappearing, she looked down at her tea for a long time. Then she said she had been angry for years, then worried for years, then tired of being both. She said some people leave because they do not care, and some leave because they are bleeding and do not know how to be touched. She said she had not forgiven me all at once. Forgiveness, for her, had been like washing an old stain every day until one morning it was lighter. I asked why she had expected me. She stood, walked to a cupboard, and took out a familiar notebook with a faded cover. My breath stopped. It was the same notebook from the bus stand. She had kept it. Inside were poems from childhood, pressed flowers, small drawings, and letters she had written to me but never sent. Some were angry. Some were gentle. Some were only prayers. On the last page, written years later, were the words, "One day Armaan will come back when the world has finished teaching him how heavy pride can be. When he does, I hope I am still soft enough to open the door." I cried again, but this time not only from grief. I cried because someone had remembered the best version of me when I had forgotten he existed. Misa did not magically fix my life. Real kindness is not magic. It is work. It is tea made without judgment. It is a blanket on the sofa. It is helping someone search job listings after school. It is telling them to shave, to eat, to stop apologizing with words and start apologizing with actions. The first week, I stayed in her spare room, ashamed of every footstep. Neighbors whispered, of course. Some said I had returned for money. Some said Misa was foolish. One woman warned her that men who disappear once can disappear again. I heard it all through open windows, and each sentence pressed on my chest like a stone. But Misa remained steady. She told people I was an old friend going through a difficult time. She did not make me smaller to make herself look wise. Still, I knew I could not live under her roof forever. I took work wherever I could find it. I repaired shelves at the school. I delivered groceries. I helped repaint classrooms during summer break. Slowly, the children began calling me Uncle Armaan. Slowly, the shopkeepers stopped staring. Slowly, the lane that had once felt like a witness to my shame became a witness to my effort. The biggest challenge was not poverty. It was learning to stay. Every time something became difficult, my body wanted to run. When a job interview rejected me, I packed my bag without thinking. Maisa found me near the gate and did not beg me to stay. She simply asked if leaving had ever healed me before. That question followed me back inside. Another day, I shouted at a mechanic who accused me of stealing a tool. My anger came out like my father's, sharp and ugly. I saw fear flash across a young boy's face nearby, and I hated myself. That night, I sat outside under the neem tree until dawn. Maisa came with tea and said becoming different from the people who hurt us is not a single decision. It is 1,000 small decisions made while the old anger is still alive. Months passed. Daylight filled my days with ordinary miracles. I found steady work managing supplies for a community learning center. Maisa and I began walking to the bazaar together on Saturdays. We did not speak of love, not directly. Some feelings are too bruised to be named quickly. But love was there in the way she saved the crispy corner of paratha for me, in the way I fixed the loose hinge on her classroom cupboard before she asked, in the way silence between us became comfortable instead of painful. We were no longer the children from the bus stand, but sometimes, when she laughed, I saw that old pink scarf flying in the sun. Then the past tested us one final time. A letter arrived from the city where I had worked before. A former client had recommended me for a high-paying position at a new company. The salary was more than I had ever earned. The office provided housing. It was everything the younger version of me would have chased without breathing. I held the letter all afternoon, feeling the old hunger wake inside me. Money meant safety. Distance meant reinvention. Leaving meant I would never have to face the people who remembered my failures. Maisa found me in the courtyard at sunset, though the story had begun in morning and most of our healing had happened in honest daylight. She read the letter, then handed it back. Her face was calm, but I knew her well enough now to see the storm behind her eyes. She said she would not ask me to stay out of guilt. She said love that survives by trapping someone is not love. Then she walked inside, and for the first time since my return, she closed the door between us. All night, I sat with the letter. I thought of my mother's grave. I thought of my father's anger. I thought of the boy on the bus, desperate to escape. Then I thought of Maisa's notebook and the line about staying soft enough to open the door. By morning, I understood something that changed me. A second chance is not proven by returning. It is proven by choosing not to run when leaving becomes easy again. I declined the job. Not because ambition was wrong. Not because the salary was not needed. I declined because the offer was not a future, it was an old wound wearing a suit. I applied instead for a smaller position in our district, one that paid less but allowed me to build something where I had once broken things. When I told Maisa, she did not smile immediately. She searched my face, perhaps afraid hope might trick her again. Then she asked what I wanted now. I told her I wanted to become someone who could be trusted with ordinary days. Someone who arrived on time. Someone who stayed. A year after I knocked on her door, Maisa and I opened a small reading room for neighborhood children in the front portion of her house. We painted the walls yellow because she said children should learn inside sunlight even when it rains. The shelves were donated, the books second-hand, the mats mismatched. On the first morning, 23 children came, noisy and curious, their hands sticky with candy, their eyes bright with possibility. I watched Maisa teach them how to write their names neatly, and I felt my heart ache with a peace I had never known. My life had not become perfect. I still missed my mother. I still carried guilt. Some nights, I still feared I would fail everyone who believed in me. But each morning, I unlocked the reading room, swept the floor, arranged the books, and stayed. Near the old neem tree, Maisa placed a small wooden box where children could leave letters they were afraid to say aloud. Some wrote about school. Some wrote about hunger. Some wrote about fathers who shouted. Whenever I read those letters, I saw my younger self, and I understood why I had come back. Not only for forgiveness. Not only for Misa. I had come back so the pain that once made me run could become shelter for someone else. If this story touched your heart, please like the video, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to Ancient Truth. Your support helps stories like this reach people who may be standing outside a door, wondering whether they still deserve to knock. Special request, comment, I believe in second chances, if you have ever forgiven someone, missed someone, or hoped that one day a broken heart could become a home again. On the second anniversary of my return, I woke before sunrise, made tea the way Misa liked it, and placed the old notebook on the dining table. Inside, after all her unsent letters, I had written one of my own. I wrote that I had spent years trying to become someone new, only to discover that healing meant returning to the parts of myself that kindness had kept alive. I wrote that she had opened the door in pajamas, in daylight, without drama, without revenge, and somehow that simple mercy had saved my life. When she came into the room, sleepy and confused, I handed her the notebook with trembling hands. She read my letter slowly, and when tears filled her eyes, I feared I had hurt her again. But then she smiled, the same smile from childhood, older now, stronger now, and said that this time, I was not late. Outside, the neighborhood was waking. Children were running through the lane. Someone was frying breakfast. The neem tree moved softly in the morning wind. Misa stood beside me at the open door, her shoulder touching mine, and for the first time in my life, I did not look toward the road as an escape. I looked at it as a place where people could arrive. I had once believed home was a location you either survived or left behind. Now I knew home was a person who remembered your goodness, a door opened when you least deserved it, and the courage to stay when love finally lets you in.